We've got the World Series. We've got Adam back filling in for Jerry, and we've got Jeff Marek and more. All that on Sports QuaranTV. Hey everyone, what's going on? It's another episode of Sports QuaranTV. Chris Dobson, Adam Lund from the Wildcast podcast joining us again this week. Jerry's away. Adam fills in. I think we're going to get him a permanent seat here as he's starting to become a staple on the show here. Adam, first and foremost, man, thanks again for doing this. I'm sure things have been busy. You've probably been trying to keep Jeremy in check, man, but how's the podcast running? What's new and exciting? What's going on?
Oh, man, we're rolling right now. The team's rolling as well, which always makes podcasting a little bit easier when the team's playing well. But yeah, keeping Jeremy in check is always a fun adventure. But thanks for having me on. I'm sure your fans are, I don't want to say getting sick of me, but they know that Habs talk is coming. So we got to get going so we can get to that, because when Jerry's not here, we're talking Habs.
That's true. And when he is here, we have to talk about the Jets. So overall, as he mentioned, guys, too, don't forget to check him out. Wildcast Podcast. You can find these guys anywhere podcasts are available. Plus, they're on YouTube now as well. You get to see their smiling faces. I love watching the way this show has progressed over the years. It's been amazing. Adam, we've got a lot to talk about. The World Series starts this week. We're going to be talking NFL. At the end of the show, I was very lucky this week to catch up with Sportsnet's own Jeff Marek. We're going to throw to that interview before we close this thing off. But we're going to start where we always start, and that's the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. And we're going to start in the Quebec side. I want to talk about Quebec and Sherbrooke because they look like they're ahead of the pack. They look like, now that NHL training camps are here, we talked a couple weeks ago. We said, let these teams come to fruition. They're going to fill out, but it looks like these guys are ahead of the pack right now. And I don't think at any given point, this thing is going to slow down. I think Quebec and Sherbrooke are probably the teams to beat. And you could see a little lull in the Maritime division for the first time in a while.
Yeah. Both these teams at 21 points after 12 games. Quebec's on an 8-1 run. Sherbrooke is on an 8-1-1 run. These two teams, if you ask a lot of pundits, they are the two teams that are going to meet in the final. Now, when the Q, they don't have an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference final. They kind of reseed. So hopefully that doesn't cost us in the reseeding when we get to a semifinal as opposed to a final. But I still think Gatineau will get there in the playoffs. They've got a lot of injuries. Landry, Nadeau, Antoine Vero, Nolan Warren. I still think they had a goaltender in the playoffs. They can kind of keep, they're not in the toughest division, so they can kind of keep buoyed with a not so stellar team. But right now, Sherbrooke, Justin Gill, and Joshua Waugh are just lights out right now. Right. And in Quebec, Theo Rochette, they're going to add Justin Robideau, which was rumored way too early. So these two teams look like they're on a collision course. And in the Maritimes division, it's kind of shaping up like it's going to be a two-team race. I don't know if these teams are going to get to a final or even a third round. We'll have to see what Halifax does. I don't believe Moncton is a buyer. I believe it's let's just keep winning and keep this crew together. But it is going to be a down year, and that's what happens when the Mem Cup is in the queue and it's in a division, and Charlottetown, Bathurst, and St. John all loaded up. Naturally, they're going to be a little bit worse. So it is a two-team race kind of in the Maritime division, but it's going to be a fun stretch as we get into the rest of the first half and always trade deadline.
So you talked, a little bit about Moncton, and, hopefully, and I agree with you. I don't think there's any scenario where Richie's going to go out and try to buy for this year. They don't really stack up. Excuse me. And, but overall, you look at the nucleus they have here in Moncton, and I was telling Jerry last week, I've caught a couple Cats games, and I can tell you they are very fun to watch right now. Like, if you look at how this team's starting to progress, they don't need to make a lot of moves. I think my big question mark comes into, if you're not going to be a buyer, you're not really in a position to be a seller. But at the same time, you're going to want to tweak a little bit because, maybe next year and the year after that, those are the years you're going to want. Yeah. And Richie's done a hell of a job of putting this core together and making a great team in Moncton. Do you think that there's a position where, Richie might move a couple assets to, get stronger at the draft, to possibly make a bigger move at the draft and, maybe make a run next year?
I do. I think we're not buyers, we're not sellers. We're going to be modifiers. We're going to modify this team.
Oh, I like that.
He's looking at 24. He's looking at 25. He's got a core. A guy like Hamel, he's a 20-year-old steady defenseman. He could possibly be on the move. Just a kind of little tweaks here and there, because it's not about this year at all. If I've always said, don't buy to win a round. That helps no one. Buy to be effective. He's got Valdor's 2023. So hopefully when the Justin Robideau trade, they just continue to plummet. They were just here. They were a great team. the biggest thing with the Cats right now is goaltending, and it's always been a question mark.
Right.
And they look like they've got 2 goaltenders. Philion's on a 4-game win streak as they host Gatineau tomorrow night. Steinman, when he's been in, he's been very good. So it's a growing team. I do think he'll make a couple modifications. You'll see maybe older players kind of maybe modified out, allowing a bit of a younger team for next year for better moves as we get into kind of our go for it year.
You know, another move they had made a couple like 2 weeks ago now, right before the Pink of the Rink weekend, they brought in Cole Bishop, that free agent out of Ontario. I mean, he looks like he's fit the mold quite well. Came on in, scored in his opening game here. You know, I've really enjoyed what he's brought to the table. Yeah,
opening
right.
Game, both of them. Yeah, and that's literally was a fine. Like, you know, we talked about it on the show that comes out today. We couldn't even say he was as expected because we had no expectations of him.
Right.
We reached out to the Ice Dog podcast in St. Catharines for the Niagara Ice Dogs. They hadn't seen him in preseason, so he really hadn't played. I don't know about you. I know Jeremy watches a lot of hockey, but we're not watching Tennessee junior hockey to get these players. So
not there yet.
Cole Bishop, hashtag Goal Bishop. He's been great for us. 3 goals in 4 games right now. Again, that's just a nice little find that didn't cost you any assets. And that's why we say in Tebow we trust, because he continues to find these players that are making each other better, and it's a great crew moving forward.
There's another positive player coming out of the Wildcats. The storyline coming out, of course, is Etienne Morin. I mean, coming on in, you know, there's only 5 players listed at a B prospect in the NHL prospects report. He was listed as one of them. I mean, what a thrill. And again, what a hell of a season he's running, right? Like, I mean, you got to be proud of something like that.
Oh, man. And, you know, there was a lot of skepticism as the 2021 draft, like, should we move up? Should we do this? And the Wildcats stayed true to their board. They picked him up. Right now, he's got 5 goals. We've got 6 wins. So when he's putting the puck in the net, he's driving this team from the back end. So it is a treat to watch him night after night. And I think a B will probably move hopefully closer to an A as we get into closer to the draft time.
Absolutely love it. All right, let's leave junior hockey, but because we got a big thing to talk about now, is of course this week the World Series starts this weekend. You know, you've got Philadelphia playing Houston, Philadelphia playing the underdog role. Don't count out Bryce Harper just yet. I mean, Bryce is having an unreal like postseason run right now, but I don't think anyone's going to stop Houston.
No, and it's like they just look so good, and they have a core that's one together. You talk about core with the Wildcats; they have a core that's one together. They moved some pieces out, but I mean, Alex Bregman, Altuve, Gurriel. I mean, those guys have been through the trenches, if you want, and have won together, and that's a big thing in baseball. They've been in these big moments. I know that Philly's got Kyle Schwarber, but hey, that's I don't really know. I don't want to count out Philadelphia, but man, it's
right.
It's how can you not? I mean, they've been counted out in pretty much every series they've been in. It's good to see. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about should baseball relegate, because we always see the same teams all the time and make these lower income teams earn it. Philadelphia is not really a lower income team, but it's just nice to see another team in the World Series.
Fully agree. And like, if you look at what Houston does too, you know, another name that pops up is you got to look at Justin Verlander, who I think at this point must be 75 years old. And you look at what his accomplishments have been. But overall, you know, seeing the Philadelphia Phillies in the World Series, it's one of those things that kind of, you know, I'll openly admit, I saw Philadelphia getting through the first couple. I said that on our show to Jerry, although he didn't believe me. But then there was, you know, the San Diego side of things. I was kind of rooting for San Diego. I would have liked to have seen San Diego kind of beat Philadelphia. But either way, it's you know, watching the way Houston manhandled New York and what the Yankees have done, you know, now they're going to be in that big Aaron Judge conversation with, which again, this could go on forever. I'm not sure. I can't see any scenario where Aaron Judge is not a New York Yankee next year. However, you know, you look at teams like San Francisco, they said, we're going all in on Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
You know, if we lose Aaron Judge, it won't be because of money. He's going to make $400 million. If Bryce Harper's making $330 million, Aaron Judge, who bet on himself, will make 400 plus. Now, whether that's in San Francisco, the Dodgers are talking about making a run at him. You know, the thing about maybe possibly moving Mookie Betts locations, or it'll be the New York Yankees. I can't see anybody else involved. But either way, I can't see a scenario where Houston doesn't win the World Series. I would like to see Philadelphia win, but at this point, I'm kind of torn. But I think Houston runs the gauntlet, probably in 4 or 5.
Just make it. Yeah, I was gonna say hopefully it gets to like 6 or 7. I don't really watch a lot of baseball in general, but I do watch playoff baseball. Also, can we just shrink the season so we're not playing into the middle of November? Because there's going to be rain delays in Philadelphia, right? So it's
America's pastime, but it's America's
exactly.
pastime.
I think Houston will win it, but I don't really like a lot of Philadelphia, and that stems from the NFL. But it wouldn't be the worst thing for them to get a World Series.
So let's talk about the NFL now. There was a pretty big teams on bye weeks this week. However, there's two kind of important, actually works out both in our favor, because there's two topics I want to talk about. And that is one, what's going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I mean, it looks like they're imploding right now, and I want to get your thoughts on that. And two, we're going to close this out because Indy's made a change at the helm as well. But let's talk about Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers first. Can they turn this thing around? I saw someone make a comment the other day that they need to go out and get Gronk. And I'm like, I don't think Gronk's coming back, guys.
No, I don't think Gronk's coming back. But I mean, you can see the difference without Gronk. Like, he just stretches the middle of the field. The problem with Tampa Bay is they're just too good of an offense to score 3 points against the Carolina Panthers. And it all stems from BA walking away or stepping down. He left Todd Bowles. He didn't get a good shot with the Jets. He had a bad roster. He walked away and said, this is the best roster you're going to have. Well, Byron Leftwich was a lot of talk last year about a head coach. And I mean, if Tampa Bay loses right now to Baltimore, and then they've got I can't remember because it frustrates me, but if they lose to Baltimore, I'm fully on the get Leftwich out. Like, this team cannot run because they run when everyone expects them to run. It's a bad offense. I don't know if Tommy's got to take it over, but I know that Tampa Bay is not going to sit Tom Brady for Gabbert. But now we've seen, is this the Colts finally admitting we're going to tank for a Bryce Young out of Alabama or one of those top quarterbacks? And they've got a good roster, though. That's the problem.
So the issue is, you talked about running. I'm going to bring that up right now. The last week that, Matt Ryan, they made the announcement that Sam Ehlinger is going to be taking over the quarterback role from now till the end of the season. Matt Ryan, who was brought on in, and then you see, of course, Frank Reich talking and telling the media, we failed him. We didn't protect him. They built their entire offense around Matt Ryan. But I'm sorry, it's absolute trash and inexcusable at this point. You have the highest paid offensive line in the entire NFL. You've got arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL, although he hasn't looked like it. He's been injured the last couple of weeks. You come on into one of the biggest games of the season against the Tennessee Titans. Derrick Henry's running that football. Derrick Henry's running straight up the gut. But at the same time, you give Jonathan Taylor 10 touches for 68 yards or 58 yards, averaging 5.8, 6.8 yards per carry. He was going to have a day. 10 touches, and Matt Ryan just goes off the rails, hurts his shoulder, and then all of a sudden he's done. I'm sick and tired of the Indianapolis Colts. I was looking at a number that our producer had sent Jerry and I in a text the other day, and this is like their sixth or seventh quarterback since 2018, like in total, that have come through. I'm beside
and this is a franchise
myself.
That was going to graduate from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. And it was going to be seamless, and it was. But the problem was they didn't build the offensive line like they have the offensive line. You're starting to see quarterback purgatory there in Indianapolis. I just know it's coming once Tom Brady leaves, but it's not. I don't understand how both teams can just not be expected to where they are. I mean, the Colts have a good offense. The Bucks have the pieces of a good offense. So if both teams lose this week, which is more likely to happen? The Bucks are going to move on from Leftwich and or Bowles, or Reich and Ballard are like, how short is the leash? Because on a Thursday night game,
it doesn't look like it's short enough anymore.
You got to move your OC. He cannot be.
Jim Irsay should have fired those guys the minute they got shut out in Jacksonville. Anyways, we got to move on because there's one topic specifically before we get to that Jeff Marek interview, and that is the National Hockey League. And Carey, caught with his cough. It's brutal.
Carey Price.
Carey Price.
There. Yeah. I got
talked to the media for the first time. Thanks, brother. Nothing but love. Carey Price talked to the media for the first time, and just listening to the way, he chose to use his words carefully, but it's the first time I've seen Carey in a calm demeanor. There was no stress. He was laughing and poking fun, having a good time at the media. At one point, the question came out and said, if you don't want to play goaltender anymore, why don't you come on out? Maybe the Habs could use a left winger. And his exact response was, yeah, I'd love to come on out and snipe a few from the other side, maybe nail a couple goalies in the head. But at the same time, the one thing he could not do, and that is, of course, he would not confirm he is going to retire. Obviously he's talking about this intrusive surgery that's taking place. Habs fans have been on their seats trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, the Montreal Canadiens have extended Jake Allen for a couple of years. They've still got Samuel Montembeault behind him. But overall, Carey, I think, still has that drive and wants to play in the game. But overall, also realize, I think he's got 4 years left in the contract that pays him at $10.5 million a year.
What's
so
more
what do
likely
you do, right?
What's more likely? He becomes a goaltending consultant for the Habs. They restructure his salary, or they trade his rights for when he gets healthy to wherever, like a Seattle.
Well, at that point, you'd have to think, but by the time he's healthy, the Habs could be a contender. Like he's off this entire year, the next 2 years, who knows? But overall, it's going to come down to him. He said himself, the one thing he wants to do is he wants to make sure that he can live his day-to-day life with his wife and his kids and his family. And it was so good to see him up there and actually doing, talking to the media as if, he's like, I'm not going to be around the guys day-to-day. I'm not going to take up the resources because these guys deserve it. I'm not going to make all that happen. But at the end of the day, I'm still a goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm just not in the room every day. And that's how things are going to go. But overall, it was good to see Carey Price. I absolutely love it. So, let's move on from that. But you know what, Adam, it's been a great show. I want to thank you for doing this. So we're going to close the show out. We're going to send it to Jeff Marek from the Jeff Marek Show and 32 Thoughts podcast from Sportsnet. We had a blast talking to Jeff this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great week. We'll see you next Thursday. Really excited to be joined probably by one of my most, excited favorite TV personalities when talking sports, Jeff Marek. I'm not even joking, man. I'm not even trying to butter you up.
Aim higher.
Oh, brother, you have no idea how much I'm excited for this. It's great to have you here, man. I know that, schedule's been tight and you're honestly probably one of the busiest men in the business right now.
All good.
You've got a couple of your shows going on. So yeah, I just wanted to dive in. I got a couple of hockey questions, listening to both your podcasts that you're running in on the Jeff Marek Show, of course, and co-hosting with Elliot. I had a chance to talk to Elliot a couple of years back as well. And, it's fun to watch.
That.
So man,
sorry to hear that.
Everybody knows you're the brains behind the operations, brother. So it's all good.
And the looks, Chris. And
the
looks.
That's on me. That's my bad. So let's get right into it, man. And, some of these questions I want to throw at you. We're going to start right off the hop. And that is, the new Iron Man in the National Hockey League, Phil Kessel. Yep. It's an exciting story. I love it. Do you think Phil Kessel gets the credit he deserves?
Oh boy, that is a loaded question. So, no, I don't. And here's why. He's probably a borderline Hall of Fame candidate. And when we think about Phil Kessel, I mean, everyone does that. Wow, Phil Kessel is the Iron Man. Wow, we're really shocked about this. And when you look at his stats, like some people will think that 400 goals is the barrier to entry for the Hockey Hall of Fame. Phil Kessel is there. I don't think that an Iron Man streak can get you into the Hall of Fame, but it's not going to hurt. I think he's been one of the more and most consistent goal scorers of this generation. He probably, Phil Kessel fans will tell you Sidney Crosby stole a Conn Smythe trophy from him. He was very much in that conversation for the Conn Smythe trophy. He has tasted victory, sipped from the Stanley Cup. So when you consider that he's done all these things and achieved, this climb the highest mountain is the metaphor in hockey and winning the Stanley Cup. And we don't consider him amongst the greats of this generation. The goal scoring kind of speaks for itself. I probably think that we all look at Phil and say, hey, he's lovable, unlikely Phil. And we probably don't take him as seriously as we should, but he's been the model of consistency. And he's probably someone that when his career is all wrapped up, we're going to look back on and say, something really good just happened in hockey. And we probably didn't give it the respect that it deserved because he was almost, like a punchline hockey player. When really, this guy was one of the best ones.
I fully agree. And if you look at exactly the accolades, you talked about them all about being a borderline Hall of Famer. It's questions that we have, around, me and the boys around the water cooler, shoot the breeze. And, on one hand, you got guys who talk about Phil Kessel being, like you said, a potential Hall of Famer, and then other guys who don't take him seriously. And I think to me, that's why I asked you the question, because I want to be able to go back to them and just be like, hey, yeah, well, you're all wrong because I'm on the Hall of Fame side. Let's go to the West Coast because
he might get in. Like, there's a legit chance. Like, I know you have to have someone speak up for you and nominate you, etc. But like, if you look at some of the players that have gotten in, like Phil Kessel has a lot more cred than they do. I know it's always dangerous to play this person got in, so that opens up the door for this other person. But much in the same way that Pavel Bure opened up the door for Eric Lindros.
Right.
You wonder if the door hasn't already been opened, Chris, for someone like Phil Kessel. Anyway,
so
blathering on.
let's talk about, so that's a positive story. Let's talk about what's going on in Vancouver right now, because absolutely. And to me, I'm shocked by this a little bit. And is there anything they can do to turn this around, or is it just a full blown, sell? Is tank mode on? What is happening?
It's stunning because I don't think it's a bad team. I think there's really good players, and they're just not when you think about it, if I told you at the beginning of the season, there's going to be a team that's going to have Bo Horvat, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko, who may be the key piece to all of it. Would you say they'll be the last place team in the National Hockey League?
No.
Would you say that they're a team that's in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes? No. So something is definitely off there. Now, are they good enough to be a playoff team? Well, listen, I know that, bad starts, you can look and say, well, it's still early in the season, but what you have to consider now is the Vancouver Canucks going to have to play at a 110 point clip for the remainder of the season to get in. That's probably not happening. And if you believe in the theory that if you're going to miss heaven, don't miss it by 2 inches, maybe you start looking the other way. But I don't know that there is much of an appetite. I don't think there's much of an appetite with ownership to throw in the towel on the season. And I get it. I understand, the Vancouver, the Aquilinis have lost a lot of money, and the Vancouver Canucks during COVID, etc. They look at what happened towards the end of last season when Bruce Boudreau took over, and the wins and the euphoria, and, Bruce, there it is, all of that stuff. And everyone's singing along at Vancouver Canucks games, and that gets seductive. I don't think anybody expected this to happen. You might have looked at the Vancouver Canucks and said, okay, they're not a great team, but they're good enough in that division, Chris, to make it into the playoffs. I don't think anybody saw a team that was going to be winless to kick off the season. And here we are talking about what they're going to do with the coach and who needs to be traded. And do we need to see, which tweets Connor Bedard is liking, and are any of them with the Vancouver Canucks? You know what I mean? It's a stunner. I don't know that anything is going to really turn this thing around and get this squad into the playoffs, though. I think that I think you're looking the other way right now if you're the Vancouver Canucks, or at least you're having that conversation. How about that?
Perfect. And that's actually a great segue to my final question, Jeff. And that is, with the superstar potential, it being the Connor Bedard sweepstakes, could we be in a position to see tanking become an issue this year? Is this something the National Hockey League is going to look at?
NHL doesn't like it. I think everybody understands it, and the way that it's structured right now. I know the lottery is supposed to dissuade teams from tanking, but it doesn't. We all know what's happening. We all know what's happening with the Arizona Coyotes. They don't want points. You can't tell a player not to play hard, but the way that it's constructed, they don't want points. That's not what they're here for. They're happy to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you're gonna have to take 2 points, take it from Toronto. I think we all know what's happening with the Chicago Blackhawks. And although, Luke Richardson's squad has pulled out some wins recently, that's not the plan here. We get it. We know what's happening. I've always maintained you can never tell a player to lose. You can never convince a player not to try, because they have their own pride and they have their own jobs on the line too. But if you look at the way that teams are constructed, sometimes losses are just unavoidable. And that's the way Arizona and Chicago are constructed this year. We thought Philadelphia would be in that mix as well. They very well might be by the end of the season. Although I think John Tortorella, I can't see a Tortorella team not squeaking out points just because he'll insist they play hard. Ditto for the Montreal Canadiens. To me, the curious one is still the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think we expected Vancouver to be in the conversation. But then, Chris, as we say, here we are. They're the last place team in the NHL, right?
You're absolutely right. I know I said it was the last one. Before I let you go, I put this Sea Dogs jersey up behind me because I know we've got a mutual contact out there in St. John. A good friend of mine and buddy of yours, Trevor Georgie, of course, have done lots of stuff with Trev. And, he speaks very highly of you. And so I wanted to just get your quick thoughts. Last year, man, watching everything Trevor went through, first round exit, comes back with Gardner McDougall, wins himself a Mem Cup. What were your thoughts on it? Did you get a chance to talk to Trevor after it was over?
I did. I got a chance to congratulate him when he sobered up. No, that's kidding. Well,
okay, right before his wedding.
Maybe I'm only half kidding. Yeah, they take the Memorial Cup to the wedding too. Trev, attaboy. I was really happy for him because, Trevor, as a young executive, in any league, a lot of the older, more established, veteran managers and people around the game. Oh, who's this punk? Oh, who's this kid? What does he know? I mean, it's his second trip to the Memorial Cup. We all remember that one year where they loaded up and ran through everybody and then trounced that Blainville team that had Pierre-Luc Dubois on it. This is after they, loaded up and grabbed like Julien Gauthier, etc. Early success. Things didn't go great for them in the tournament, but nonetheless, they got there. I mean, I was happy for him because I know what he's gone through. I know what Scott McCain, the owner, has gone through. I mean, Scotty's just a guy that's like, I don't care if we make any money on this thing. I just want it to be successful. Scotty's the owner, and you know this, Chris, like that sits in the stands with the fans and has the beer and just loves the environment and loves hockey in St. John. So I was happy for him. And like McDougall, like it's like this fairy dust you sprinkle on teams and you end up winning tournaments and winning championships. I mean, I was a little bit surprised considering I was a little bit surprised at the coaching change, to be honest with you, because of what was happening to the team at the time and like flu bug going through and how many players are available in that opening round last year. And, even if they are available, how good are they going to be when you consider the nature of the sickness around the team? But I was happy for Trev. I was happy for those players, happy for Scotty McCain, and really happy for, the people of St. John. I've been there a few times and like those people are awesome. Those people are fantastic. I have all the time in the world for, not just the Sea Dogs organization, but their fans as well. And that is one of those places that I always say, like, if you're going to do the junior hockey stops, make sure you go to St. John. It's a great one. Like I'll throw in like London is a great example of you got to have that experience. I think Red Deer is a great place to go watch a junior game too. You want to go to Quebec to the big, beautiful new cathedral in Quebec City, the Videotron there. Although I got a soft spot in my heart for the Colisée, but if you're a junior hockey lover, St. John's one of the spots you got to hit.
Love it. And thanks so much, Jeff. Next time you're in New Brunswick or hitting St. John, let me know. We'll all grab a cold one together.
Listen, the origins of my family is St. Stephen, New Brunswick, and I have never been back. One day, you're going to take me there. Promise?
You've got my word on it. Thanks for doing this, Jeff. I'll let you get out of here. Enjoy everything, guys. Jeff Marek from Sportsnet, everybody. You can catch him on the Jeff Marek Show and the better-looking, more talented version of the 32 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman. Thanks for doing this, Jeff. Take care, my friend.
I like that you read that exactly as I wrote it, Chris. That was excellent.
You're welcome.